Hello, I'm PurpleAlmonds, and today I will be voicing over Playtime, a JackSepticEye and Last Guardian fanart. The entire process took about 16 to 17 hours, but I sped it up to 10,000% for your convenience. This is the first video of its kind, but I suppose a good start is just to walk you through what I'm doing. I'm basically making a cleaner drawing on top of the rough sketch I made prior to recording. Usually I skip this step and go straight into painting, but since there was more than one character in here, I wanted to make sure everything reads clearly before proceeding to the next step. Sketching is a pretty integral part of my creative process, but since it involves a great deal of trial and error, I usually don't include it in my recordings. But this is a bit different. All the trialing and erroring is already done, and I'm essentially doing a draw-over that equates to inking a drawing, which, to my understanding, is something you see in other people's speed paint videos. And we should be getting to the flats right about now. The process itself is pretty self-explanatory. I use the lasso tool to make a selection, then I fill it in, rinse and repeat as necessary. It seems pretty simple, but that's not all there is to it. For this Trico-pup's head alone, I've made at least 3 or 4 different groups for each facial feature. Within each group, say the eye group, I have layers for the white of the eyes, the iris, the pupil, and even the eyelashes. Oh, seems like I'm kind of skipping a step and going straight into the colors. On less ambitious pieces, I tend to do a grayscale pass just to make sure all the values are good to go, but I figured if I did that, it would mean a couple more hours of work for me, compounded by the fact that I would have 4, actually soon to be 5 characters in here. I do wind up with a more muted pastelish color palette as a result of this, but for this particular piece, I think it worked to my advantage. Looks like I got started with Jack's hoodie. And here be a lesson for you to do your research and look up your reference images before you start painting. We're going at about a mile a minute here, but in real time, I had a lot of trouble just getting the hoodie to look right. And really, all I needed to do is Google search, what was it now? I think it was JackSepticEye blue jacket, and then bam, everything just went 100% faster after that. Not to mention, it helps make a more believable image. I wouldn't have been able to get all the details on the hoodie if I didn't do my research. Anyhow, I did learn my lesson with the jacket, so when I moved on to painting the shoes, I took the time to look up images of blue Converse shoes. And, lo and behold, when I painted those shoes, they actually look like actual shoes, instead of something that I just made up on the spot. And this, ladies and gentlemen, be the power of reference images. And it would seem like we've already moved on to Trico-pup number 2. I wanted to explore some newer feather patterns and colorations, but then at the same time I wanted to keep the colors unified, and I just stuck with birds that had more of an earth tone color palette. This little guy in particular, he's inspired by the patterns and the coloration of snowy owls. I took some creative liberties, of course. White is a surprisingly hard color to work with, and if I made this Trico completely white, she'd just start blending into the background, which is something that I don't want to happen. So I went ahead and made her base color more of a 30 to 40% gray instead of pure white, and I think it worked out pretty well. She still looks fairly white, and she's much more readable this way too. Later on, I think I wind up tweaking her colors just a little bit more, because it's really hard to judge her values against a white background. But, that's a bridge I'll cross later. Much, much later. And now it would seem that I'm just doing some touch-ups, adding the tail, adding some details on Septiceye Sam, who's getting torn to bits. And now I'm on to Trico number 3, who is inspired by the coloration of the Himalayan peasant, I can't really pronounce it. But I really like that it's like earth tone colored with some really lovely blue color accents. I feel like it's a very nice complement with Jack's blue jacket and blue Converses. At this point, I'm getting into some of the nitty-gritty details. I could narrate over it, but I bet that's getting kind of boring for you. So instead, I'm just gonna talk about my inspiration for this piece. Ever since Jack started playing The Last Guardian, me and probably every other artistically inclined fan of his wanted to do a drawing of Trico and him just having a good time together. But I didn't really have that spark of inspiration until, spoilers by the way for the ending of the game, baby Tricos became a thing. Then I banged out a couple of very rough drawings of them. It's quick and dirty compared to my usual stuff, but I felt it was good enough to be shared on the interwebs. I woke up the next morning and holy frick, the post just absolutely exploded overnight. Apparently Jack discovered the drawings, and I suppose he liked them enough to share it. Now that really got the ball rolling. In a span of 2 weeks, I painted 3 of these little pups. And then by then, I had a pretty good process on how to paint them. All that there was left to do was to, well, get a unique premise as to why Jack and the Trico-pups can come together in a single picture. And that little seed of inspiration was planted in Jack's New Year video. He mentioned that he wanted to move to Brighton and just maybe, finally get a new dog. And some peeps on Tumblr asked what kind of dog he'd want, but he couldn't decide on one. He said they were all too cute. Then my brain suddenly went like, okay, what if he had Trico-pups as pets? That would be like the coolest thing in the world. And I guess you can say the rest was history. And now, we're back to our normal programming. Seems like I'm just working on some finishing touches. Some bloom lighting here, some rim lights there. I think I might have added a Gaussian blur to vignette this piece too. Now it would seem that I'm just turning off all the fancy layers and just working solely on the brightness and contrast layers. Earlier on, I just wanted to do a quick lighting pass just to get the shadows where they need to be. But now I'm just spending time to refine these shapes. In hindsight, I kind of realized that these are a lot of details that people kind of glaze over when they look at the image, but as an artist, I kind of want it to be there. But as the viewer of this video, giving you more of the obvious play-by-play translates to boring, so instead I'll answer a question that you've probably been asking for a while now. Since this channel is pretty small, I'm running on the assumption that you came to this video via Tumblr or Twitter and have already seen the finished piece, so you're probably very curious as to why Wiishu is still missing so late in the video too. I'll let you in on a shameful secret. In the earliest phase of the picture, Wiishu was actually right there in the composition. But then, I started making really stupid excuses like, oh, I already have to paint 3 Trico-pups and Jack, and oh, I never drew her before, it's gonna be too hard. Like I said, stupid excuses that basically boiled down to me being a lazy turd. But as you can see, I did eventually get to painting her. But all in the meanwhile, I had that guilty feeling in the back of my head, berating me for basically cutting her out of the picture, and for all the wrong reasons too. As I got closer and closer to the finish line, I was looking for a reason, any reason really, to get Wiishu back into the picture. But at this point, my lazier side was going all like, hey, she's never even played The Last Guardian. Why does she have to be here? It doesn't even make sense. Fair point, fair point. But then, on Tumblr, she was asked a very similar question, what kind of dog she'd like. To which she answered basically the same way that Jack did. She can't decide, cause they're all too adorable to choose from. So Jack wanted a dog, Wiishu wanted a dog. Bingo, there's the link. That was ample reason to add Wiishu back into the composition, and I'm really glad I did. She was an absolute joy to draw and paint, not to mention a welcome breath of fresh air from all the Tricos I've been painting. And she really adds to the story of this piece. Initially, I just had her standing there taking photos on her smartphone, but at the very last minute, I got this interesting idea of giving her the tattoos that the kid from The Last Guardian had. And, if you know anything about the origins of the tattoos, you'd probably also understand the significance of Wiishu being marked by them. It adds a new undercurrent of story behind this picture. But that's all the time we have for this video, so I'll just leave that part up to your imagination. Wink! So that's it! I sincerely hope you enjoyed this video. Special thanks to Doctor Fio for giving me a crash course on Adobe Premiere, and the people who kept me company while I was streaming this. You can find links to Dr. Fio's YouTube channel and my Twitch channel in the description below. And if you like this, be sure to check out my other videos under the Speedpaint playlist. And if you have any constructive feedback, feel free to leave a comment down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!